Good morning and welcome to Money and Mindset with the Doctors. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money.
And I'm Dr. Thyonne, known as your story genius or Dr. Story. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So where are you? I know you're on the road.
I'm in my favorite place in the world, one of my favorite places, Santa Barbara.
I figured as much. I was like, wait a second. She's on the road again.
If I could sit on a patio, but it'll probably be too noisy.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful there. I'll show you the view before we leave. But
fabulous. Yeah. Fabulous. So how long are you going to be there?
I'm coming back today. That's why I was just trying to put everything together so I can check out of here right after the show. I'm still getting dressed to get out of there. Yes.
Fabulous. Well, I'll be in California tomorrow.
Oh, nice. See, I'm going to add my friends. What are you doing in California tomorrow?
Well, I have meetings. So we have some morning meetings, a meeting with Shanita and AJ. We have some Los Angeles Investors Club business that we'll address. And then I'm meeting with Shalon later in the day, where we're talking about the media and production. And so we're going to talk about all of the shows and content and all of the shows that we want to produce. And then I'm going to have dinner with Dr. Sherry, where we were talking about the grants and the funding for the organizations and around the institutions and the medical school and all of those activities. So we're going to address all of those things. So it'll be a pretty full day.
I was going to say, that sounds like a pretty busy day. Is that a whole week worth of meetings, or what are you doing?
Wednesday.
Oh, that's going to be a Wednesday, as they say in Winnie the Pooh. It's going to be a blustery day. Wednesday. You're going to have lots of wins going on here and there.
Pretty much. And then, of course, meeting with my client in Orange County and a couple of clients in Inland Empire, and perhaps even showing some commercial space. I have a client that wants an office, a medical space. So it's like, there we go, a little bit of everything. So
that's fantastic. That is really good. And it kind of brings us a little bit to, I know how to make anything come to, well, it kind of brings us to, how are you doing all of this? How are you making so much money that you can prioritize going here and there and doing all these different things? Talking about how we make money and how we tend to utilize it kind of brings us right into that topic of what we do with what we have.
Absolutely. And, it's so interesting because it really has become, I think, pronounced as we're looking at this economy and the resources that are available to so many entrepreneurs. And me being I say I'm an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. So I feel like I'm an entrepreneur's whisperer, right? And so naturally, I want every entrepreneur to succeed with their business. And I want them to take advantage of the chance to finally have access to resources. But what I'm finding, and it's heartbreaking, is that in order to get capital, you need to have invested some capital. You need to demonstrate that you invested in structuring your business properly. And that when you look at the resources that, you're asking so-and-so to put money towards your business, or they're going to want to see an accountability for what you've put towards the business. So you can't ask an outsider to finance your dream and you have not invested the same towards financing your dream, because it's not the same as being an employee. And for some reason, I think people don't always make that mental transition between, when I was an employee, I worked on a job. The job was not meant to pay me my dream salary, if you will, or sustain me, as much as it was an opportunity to help someone else fulfill their dream for fair exchange, right? Or for an exchange where maybe you're developing skills or relationships or some of those other things, but it's not necessarily aimed at making sure that you create generational wealth, for example, for your family, if that's a personal desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a job is just what they call it, a job, a place where you go to work for someone else. And again, you're helping them fulfill their dream, perhaps, because whatever the company is, they probably had a dream to do that company, whatever it was. And you're a part of their chain, of their resource chain. And so people do have to make the distinction of when you're going to work for someone and when you're working for yourself and what that distinction is. And what I found a lot, Dr. Money, and you probably saw this too as we look through the stimulus opportunities that were out there, people didn't distinguish themselves in their own business as not only just an owner, but when they were the owner and when they were the worker. So if you're a solopreneur and you're working singularly in your entrepreneurial business, you're still an employee. And so you have to act as such, as if you're on a job for someone else, even though that someone else is you. So I may have a business, but when I'm actually doing the work of the business, then I have to put on now I'm the worker in the business.
Yes.
And I have to pay myself accordingly as the worker in the business. But many times people, especially as entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, we mesh it all together. And maybe that's why we mesh it together even when we're working on a job and don't understand clearly the distinction between you're an employee and this is your employer. And that's where we hear a lot of people saying, it's just not fair. They did this and I did so much work on this. This was my project. I did it. But it's not your company. And so they are going to take the credit in whatever way they do, depending upon the type of supervisor you have or the type of person who's running the company. I just spoke with an entrepreneur this morning, and he was telling me, he was asking me questions about advancing his business and leveraging it. And he's in the Caribbean. And and he says, I'm bringing on a new product line. Now he has what has been known as one of the world's first floating spas. Great concept. Started it from the beginning. He's doing a really good job with it. He's getting some good publicity and everything. And so he's going to start doing CBD oils. And I said, that's great. So you come up with some different concepts. And of course, for me, different stories. You know, this is, you want to get away, blissful getaway, a real getaway, the total getaway, or you name your packages and you do it. And he's like, no, I'm going to sell the CBD because I can get it at this percentage, but I want to sell it outside of the massage. Well, why do you want to sell it outside the massage? Because my massage therapists get commissions. Okay. So why not incorporate it within it? So when your massage therapists are telling people about the massage, they say, you know, you can get an add-on and have a CBD oil massage. It is blissful. It will take you away out here on the ocean. You're going to love it. Well, no, then I have to give them commission. I have to give them commission on everything they do. I'd have to give them a commission on the product. So what's wrong with sharing the commission? Well, because it'll be more money for me if I don't. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But then your workers are not going to want to share that information. They're not going to care if they do the massage with that oil or with baby oil. They don't care if you're not getting a piece of it, you know, so you have to incentivize people. That's the difference. His workers don't get a say in that. He gets to say how the business is going to be and what type of business owner he's going to be. And so for our conversation today, that's what I had to talk with him about. What type of business owner are you going to be? You're going to be the greedy business owner that just has to have everything? Or are you going to be the business owner that says, you know what? If they're getting a commission on this, they're going to push it out more, which means more for me anyway. But everybody doesn't think like that. And so as a worker, you have to understand when you're working in a job, you are working for someone else. Their mindset may be totally different from yours. You may be thinking, oh, I'm doing all this extra work. I'm going to sell millions of things and I'm going to be a part owner. No, you're not. You're going to get a gold watch at the end of 50 years. Maybe. It might be a fake watch, you know.
These days, I don't even think they give the watch anymore. You know, it's like,
oh. Yeah. So, I mean, we have to understand those distinctions. And in making those distinctions, making a decision when you're working for someone, I'm going to be the best worker I can be. When I worked in the industry and entertainment industry and the dot-com industry, in whatever industry I worked in, doing consulting, I was the best employee ever. And I never thought it was mine. Never
Right.
believed it was mine. Knew it wasn't mine. Still did my best work so that people would always call me. Now,
Mhm.
what was I doing part-time? I was saying, "Ooh, I learned that today. That's great. I'm going to take notes because one day I'm going to have my own practice where I can do it the way I want to do it." And that's where I got my learning. So I used it. I didn't just look at my salary as part of my payment. I looked at the learning and the education that I got from working with people and letting me make mistakes on their business because I didn't always get it right. Believe me, I still don't always get it right. So when I would make a mistake, it was on their dime. And it was like, oops, my bad. Ooh, thanks for teaching me that. Ooh, thank you. Note to self, never do this in business. I cost them a lot of money. Not going to cost myself a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's where you learn when you're working for somebody. And you learn how to budget your money better because you're watching what's happening at a company.
Well, at least that's what you hope. Because what I was noticing as well as we're going through some of the financials, that a lot of people don't always have an issue of generating money. They have a spending problem in terms of how they allocate those resources. And I don't know if it's just because there's a lack of understanding of what is an investment versus what is something that you're buying for consumption, and if that consumption is contributing to your bottom line. So, for example, when you look at, I'm always saying, if it's on your AZZ, if it's on your butt, it's not an asset, right? If it's something that you've bought, even, banks will let you list your vehicles, but we know vehicles are not investments. They depreciate unless you're investing in vehicles that are generating revenue because they are commercial vehicles, or you're in a business that requires you to travel a lot and the vehicle is kind of part of that presentation package for the business. Real estate and finance, some of those industries, real estate development, I notice, the vehicles, we're always out and about, and so we're taking clients, so the vehicle was actually part of our business expense, which is why the company gave us an allocation of funds to maintain the vehicles and keep them operational because they were part of the business, requirements and essential. But when I just see, allocations for, oh, I'm going to go and get an expensive vehicle just because it makes me feel good, but my company is still at a critical stage where really I should wait before I get that vehicle. I should invest in more opportunities that are going to lead to income instead of stuff that's taking away the resources that you have. And I don't see that always being understood or even as a thing.
How people spend is very interesting to me. And I know working with young people, working with the foster care youth that I'm working with youth that are in the foster care system. I announced it last week with the She Ready Foundation. So remember to go see shereadyfoundation.org. And working with young people that are transitioning into adulthood, it's very interesting to get the mindset of how people choose to spend their money. I do not judge how people spend their money so much because I know a lot of it comes from the mindset of how they were raised or the culture that they were raised in or how they were raised. Now, I happen to rent rooms in my house. One of my friends said, you just know if there's a spot, she's renting it. And I probably am. So, because that's one way that I choose to make money and pay off my mortgage. But I rent it to a person. When I think about culture, I rented to someone who was from China. And this young lady knew how to save money. She wasn't making a lot of money here. She's on a visa and visiting, but she was working in architecture. So she's like an architectural intern and not making a lot of money. But boy, she knew how to save money. And we talked and discussed what that meant, what it meant to her in terms of saving money and spending money, how she spent her money. Now, when she spent her money, she bought quality things. She would buy a t-shirt that I wouldn't buy. So I might buy a t-shirt 3 for 10, you know. She would buy a t-shirt that's a $50 t-shirt because she says, well, this is a t-shirt I'm going to wear. I'm going to take care of it. It's a quality t-shirt. So she would always buy quality over quantity, but she would save, save, save. She would not buy if it wasn't something that she thought she really needed. So that t-shirt, she would wear it as her work wear, as sometimes her play wear, but it was something that she used for the long haul. So that was an investment for her. And meanwhile, she's saving. She's like, I'm going to get braces. I'm going to get this and that. And she ended up getting, the reason I knew she saved so well, she ended up getting scammed. So someone called her company and said they were the CFO. So it would be as if we both worked for Microsoft and someone called and said, this is Bill Gates. I know you're not used to me calling, but I have an emergency and I couldn't reach anyone else and I needed to talk to you. Now you and I would be like, this ain't no Bill Gates.
Right.
She didn't know. So she thought it was the owner of the company, even though she's never met the owner. They don't usually talk to the owner. She thought it was the owner of the company. And they told her that she needed to go get some Google cards or something like that, Google something or another, and told her what amount to go get. And she went to the store and she got it. She just went right away and she got it. And then she called them back and said, I have it. And they said, okay, so give me this code and give me this code. And she gave them the codes and they got like $1,000 worth of her money. Now, first I'm thinking, you got $1,000 saved that you could just give to your boss who's a billionaire, you know? And she says, I didn't know. She didn't know. So she lost that money. And they did that to a couple of people that were foreign at her company. A couple of them got the call, but the rest of them went to their immediate supervisor and said, oh, I don't have the money. What am I going to do? I can't pay the boss like the boss asked. And they were like, no, 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 do not pay. That's a scam. But she just did it, you know, because that's part of the culture is you follow the orders of your boss. And so she was scammed out of that money. But even being scammed out of that money, and I helped her to try to recoup the money. We were able to recoup some of it. But even being scammed out of that, she already had her savings for braces that she wanted. And I was like, so you just had this extra money? She's like, I've been saving for my braces. And it hadn't been that long. So how we spend is very interesting. When I look at the foster youth, there are things they've never had. And so they want to just spend it. This whole life of waiting for getting something. I want something nice. And so even if they're not making a lot of money, they want to go spend a lot of money. And as business owners, you can tell us, Dr. Money, that does not work. We got to grow up and we've got to understand how to put together a spending plan. Not just a budget to say what you can't do, but what you can do. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what a spending plan would look like for an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely, because I agree. Now, remember, the distinction is that nobody makes you become an entrepreneur. So that has to be your choice. So when you make that choice, then basically what you're saying is you see a market opportunity that you believe you can exploit and you can make a profit based on that market opportunity. But first, you need to invest in creating a vehicle that you're going to be able to monetize. So that means you need to capitalize the venture. You need to create the capacity, and that capacity includes not only your human resources, your technological resources, if there's material requirements that go into creating the product or, delivering on a service. It's all of those resources that help to make up the value chain of the organization, as well as if you are importing. So if you have suppliers that make up a supply chain. So all of that process you invest in. And then also customers. What is going to be a way that you begin to make a market aware that your business exists and that you continue to advance those conversations so that those customers, one, are aware of your business, but actually want to do business with you, and you begin to build that relationship. But all of those things require investment, and that's a choice. And so really what I'm saying is that if you make a decision that you want to succeed in business, then you have to see yourself much like perhaps you saw your employer. They made investments to be able to offer you a paycheck. They invested to have the capital so that they could pay you to help make up their capacity within the organization. And then they had effort in order to have customers, someone who is buying their goods and services so that the business operates. And then, yes, they have identified a way to do all of these things and make profits for themselves or the other shareholders, stakeholders that have an equity interest in the organization. And so that part of the mindset is what I think that entrepreneurs may not be as clear about, but it's important because at this point where capital opportunities are available, that is part of what you're needing to demonstrate in order to be successful with securing funding. You have to demonstrate that you're deliberate in your understanding of what it takes to build a sustainable company. Mm-hmm. And a company goes through phases. And so in the beginning, when it's new and unknown, that is such a critical part of the development and evolution. So you're intensifying, your focus on the resources that you have available so that some point in the future, you gain market traction, the business begins to grow and prosper, and then you can again readjust maybe some of those allocations. Maybe you won't need to spend as much, in one particular area. Once you set up the basic infrastructure, now it's about maintaining that infrastructure. So I don't have to make the big initial investment, for example, in IT, buying all the, computers and hardware and software. Once we've made that investment, now it's just about maintaining those tools so that they remain effective in the business. So it's just really about that shift in perspective so that you can be successful.
What about the idea that in my business, I have to look a certain way in order for people to pay attention to me? So I need to get red bottoms and the Gucci bag, and I need to have a Rolls Royce, and I need to have all these type of things just so that people will know that I'm in business, even though I kind of don't have that kind of money to do that right now, but I'm going to overextend myself and do all those things. What about that part of the business? Because I hear that sometimes, like I have to be a certain way in order to get into doors.
Yes. There are some industries that absolutely there is a part, but I think when you look at the contemporaries, and then I also think that we have to be honest. I know as a Black woman in America, I have to present myself in a way that's definitely different than others. I've seen others show up in, I remember, these commercial deals, right? I have to come in looking like, a professional if I'm showing and meeting around commercial. And I've actually I met a woman looking at a space in flip-flops, and her wrinkled, it looked like she literally rolled out of bed to come and meet me. I mean, her hair was, I said, wow, it must be nice. Like if I dared go on any appointment looking like she looked, there'd be no way. And she's a major listing broker where she had a bunch of properties under her, control that someone had given her the opportunities. And I said, wow, that it must be nice. But that, unfortunately, I couldn't get away with that because the first thing that they're doing is assessing to determine, am I professional? Am I qualified? But also, I think it's also within reason too. If it is that you're going out and you're closing multi-billion-dollar deals, and maybe the people that you're dealing with, they're involved in country clubs, and you're going to meet them at the country club. I still think that you want to present yourself in such a way that you're not necessarily, because some people do make it, if they feel like you're doing so well, sometimes they actually feel like, well, then you don't need my money. Yeah. Or you misallocating my money, because, sometimes people take offense to that as well. So it's a matter of fine tuning and understanding what's the expectation and what's acceptable within reason for the consumers, that you're dealing with, the customers. If you're doing,
who is your customer and who is your investor? You want to know who your people are. Mm-hmm.
Right. because everybody, once you start asking for money outside of your own, then you have to realize that other folks are scrutinizing how those resources are allocated.
Right. Yeah. So there may come a time when you do need to represent in a certain way. And I'm one to believe that brands don't always tell the story, but looking professional doesn't mean you have to be in a certain brand. Looking neat, looking clean, uh,
Right.
just having yourself together and having your information together. That is your brand. So your brand is going to tell your story far greater than any other brand. The other brand tells a lot of different stories. You wear a Rolex and you show up to your meeting, people are doing whatever assumptions they want. That's probably not real. So they wear fake things. Or, well, if they're rolling up like that, maybe they don't need my money.
Right.
Or, somebody must have gave them that. I wonder if they stole that. So people create their own stories when they see you in other people's brands. When you show up as your brand, just unapologetically who you are, knowing your stuff, that's the brand you want people to see. You want to create your story versus letting other people create the story for you.
Absolutely. And that's so important. And so it's interesting because we're talking about that just in the shift with this 420 wellness, because it's going back into a business that's very much built on service, hospitality, wellness, right? So the idea of that branding, what are the uniforms going to look like? What type of technology are we instituting? I went over the weekend to a facial spa, and they call themselves a skin medical spa. And the presentation from the second you step into the building, and the dress of the estheticians, the fact that they have registered nurses that are part of the staff, that they to do any type of injections, you have to be a registered nurse, but they're walking around with their iPads. So they've got all your information and just their entire process. And so what I loved was they worked you through their presentation. They took you through the treatment. And then, of course, there was an upsell. They wanted to sell you a membership. But even in presenting the membership, it was such a seamless process that I didn't feel as if I was being sold as much as I felt that I was being presented with an opportunity based upon what was revealed, in looking at an assessment of my skin and realizing some of my concerns about this dry climate when I'm here in Nevada, just how dry it is here in Vegas, and wanting to find some additional tools to mitigate that and make sure that my skin doesn't suffer, while I'm in this environment. So it was a really wonderful experience. And I was so grateful. In fact, I'm reaching out to the owners to see if we can talk about having that, either them as the licensed facial element of our wellness spa, or training our esthetician team in their practices and products, so that we could have them as part of our spa. So it was just a very nice, way to see someone else's idea and the implementation. And what I loved was I was looking at we've been looking at kind of scrubs and the different colors. And I've been talking to a design team about what I want our uniforms to be. So I noticed theirs were black, and I liked them. They were a little more stylish. They weren't just, baggy scrubs. They were a little bit more fitted. And so that created a different impression. And I appreciated that.
I love it when you go someplace and have a great customer service experience and you're actually coming back talking about it time and time again. So many times we have customer service experiences that are bad, and we tell everybody about the bad customer service. We have to start elevating those customer service experiences that are good. Now, I admit I am one that I get my little secret hideaway places, and I'm like, I'm not telling nobody because I don't want it to get bad. So That's a bad thing. I have to start sharing more. But I get my little thing and I'm like, oh my God, they're so good. They did this, they did that, they did this right and that right and this right. And I want them to stay in business. So of course I should want to share. But sometimes you're just like, I'm not telling anybody because this was so good. I think they did it just for me. They only did it because it's only me, you know. But I love the idea that you're talking about how they greeted you, how they took your information. They had an iPad looking professional and actually looking futuristic because they're looking at digital work. And so they're taking your information and then they're escorting you, probably doing great handoffs from one person to the next. I'm going to leave you with this person. They're going to take care of you. And they have your records already because it's digital. Oh, it's just poof, right over to them. And then you're getting the care. You're getting your skin taken care of. And at the end of a great skincare treatment, you're always like, oh my God, I need to do this every day. And then they get to say, now we have a membership. We'd love to see you back again.
Absolutely.
But our membership is a great deal because we're hoping to see you back maybe 3 or 4 more times to take care of this issue. And if you're going to come back, here's an opportunity to come back in maybe a more economical way through a membership. And of course, at that point, you're just like, sign me up, you know?
Absolutely. It's true. It is so true. It's really true. So there's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. And in fact, I'm going back today.
You need a membership.
I am going back today. So I did. I signed up for a membership and I'm so excited. I'm going back today to get some special treatments, part of the medical grade recommendations. So I'm looking forward to it.
That sounds great. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. And we are at 9:30 or a little beyond maybe. Want to remind everybody what it means to make and spend money, whether you are an employee of someone else or you're an employee of yourself, you're an entrepreneur. We have to start remembering what it means to make money and how we spend money. And Dr. Money will tell you that we probably don't really have as much of a problem making money as the way we spend our money. And you have to remember, investing in yourself is the first part of spending money. And it doesn't mean that you have to invest in a lot of brands to put on your body. I love what you just said, Dr. Money, about if it's on your AZZ, then it's not an asset, you know. But investing in yourself means investing in whatever that business is, whatever that resource is, the education you need, investing in yourself so that you can advance your business or the work that you do. And that means you're going to be able to capitalize on that, build capacity from it, get customers, and have great conversations around the work that you do so that others could invest in you. So remember, it's not about making the money. It's about how you're spending it and how you're putting things into play for your future and for your generational wealth, if that be the thing you're interested in for the future. You may want to just spend all your money now and say, hey, who cares? I don't think that's what this group does, though. Dr. Money, take it away.
Well, you put, as usual, you put it in a nice bow. There's nothing more to be added to that summary of today's topic. All I can tell everyone is, you know what we want you to do. Tune in next Tuesday, same time, same place, for Money and Mindset with the Doctors. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Okay, take care.